How's it going, everyone? It is me, Lone Vault Wanderer, here with a video that I think has the chance to cause a little bit of controversy and to receive a little bit of hate. Even though, and believe me when I'm saying this, that's not my intention. I'm not trying to cause controversy, and I'm not trying to stir up the pot or cause hate or fighting or bickering in the Fallout community. Really, the intention of this video is just to point out a fact and see how people react. And if you still disagree with me after that point, please let me know in the comments below. My videos are never meant to be a one-way street. I always ask your opinions about the topic that I'm talking about in the comments below, and more often than not, I try to reply to most comments on the videos, even though I've been lacking in that department recently. But please, just understand that I'm not trying to cause controversy, and also listen to the entire video and what I have to say, because I'm going to try and cover my bases as best as I can. But if you still disagree after that, feel free to disagree. It's completely within your right, and I always love hearing alternative points of view, because when I do, I frequently think, I didn't think of that. That's a great point, and then I'll reassess or readjust my own point of view and perspective. So please let me know your opinion in the comments below to the following question. Does the fact that because it's been almost 7 years since Fallout New Vegas released, and as a result, the Obsidian Entertainment development team has changed drastically over that time, alter your opinion on whether you want to see Obsidian create another Fallout game? Or, equally, change your opinion on the kind of Fallout game we might get from Obsidian if they were to work on the franchise again? Please let me know in the comments below. And I think that question is really obscure at the moment, but it'll make sense once I explain my thoughts in this video. So this video was brought up because over the past month or so, I've done a lot of Fallout discussions on my channel. I haven't really discussed news because there's no real news going around. And I still want to create Fallout content on my channel because I love the franchise. And so that's been my main focus with Fallout. For instance, I created a video about how Fallout is very unlikely to go back to Obsidian, so which other developer would be a good choice to work on Fallout again. I've made a video about how I believe Fallout 5 should go back to its roots. I've also made a video on whether I think Fallout 3 or New Vegas should be remastered or remade for newer consoles. So I've done a lot of Fallout discussion, and as a result, because in this kind of current climate of post-Fallout 4, there was a lot of discussion in the comments about the usual, whether people thought Fallout 4 was a good game or a bad game, how much people wanted the Fallout franchise to go back to Obsidian, and it's those kinds of comments that I want to focus on somewhat in this video, because typically when the Fallout 4 discussion comes up, people mention how they want the Fallout franchise to go back to Obsidian because Obsidian did such a good job with New Vegas, or that Bethesda should just give the Fallout franchise to Obsidian entirely, again, because they did such a good job with New Vegas. And even in my remastered discussion video, there was this comment that suggested that I would like a Fallout New Vegas remaster, but only if Obsidian did that remaster, so that New Vegas could be properly fleshed out, like Obsidian wanted but did not have the time for. Essentially, this comment was saying Obsidian didn't really get enough time to work on New Vegas and create the game that they wanted to, because they had a short development cycle of about 18 months. And this person was saying that he would only want to see a remaster from Obsidian so that they got the chance to work on the Fallout game they always wanted with proper time, etc. And I get this sense, and maybe I'm wrong about this, again, feel free to correct me in the comments below. But when I read comments like this, when people are talking about how much they want to see Obsidian work on Fallout again, how great of a job Obsidian did with New Vegas, and therefore they should work on another Fallout game in the future. When I read these comments, I kind of get the sense that people believe that Obsidian is pretty much the exact same team that worked on New Vegas all of those years ago. And again, maybe I'm wrong about this, and maybe I'm drawing too many implications from just what people are saying in very brief comments. So if I am wrong about that, I apologize. But at the very least, that's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing people refer to Obsidian as the exact same group, as the exact same team that worked on New Vegas all those years ago. And therefore, if they ever were to work on a Fallout game again, we'd essentially get the most spiritual successor to New Vegas as possible. Let's call it New Vegas 2. That's pretty much New Vegas in every single way, but just improved across the board. And the point that I always try and raise when these comments are mentioned is, well, look, it's been almost 7 years since Obsidian worked on New Vegas. Don't you think the development team has changed a lot since then? Don't you think that the majority of the team that worked on New Vegas has dispersed and left to other development studios or other jobs completely? And therefore, if Obsidian were to work on Fallout again, it would not be the same team, or wouldn't even be close to the same team that worked on New Vegas. And the reason why I mention that is because when people are saying, I really want Obsidian to work on Fallout again, I think because it's not the same team, and we'll get into my research that I've done about that in a second, but because it's not the exact same team, in fact, it's vastly different, there is a chance that this game, while it could be good and it could be great, and Obsidian currently is a great studio, and I'm going to get to that, so please, keep listening, but because it's such a vastly different studio, there is a chance that if today's Obsidian were to work on Fallout again, it might not be that true spiritual successor to New Vegas, as people are kind of envisioning in their mind when they think back to New Vegas and they think back to what Obsidian at the time could do. And again, I'm not suggesting that today's Obsidian will create a bad Fallout game, not at all. Please keep listening to the video. But all I'm saying is that because the team has changed a lot, that there's a chance it could be different, and there's a chance it might not meet those lofty expectations of fans that are looking solely to what New Vegas offered in terms of a game, due to a team that does not exist anymore, really, in that kind of form. And why am I actually saying that the Obsidian team has changed a lot since the time of New Vegas? There's a couple of factors there. And again, I'm just pointing out these facts, I'm presenting these facts to see if people reassess their position, and if they don't, if they still think Obsidian will create a game just as great as New Vegas, that's very similar to New Vegas, then that's your valid opinion. I'm just trying to offer, different facts to see if it changes anyone's mind. But of course, the first thing that I'm going to mention is that Fallout New Vegas was released on the 19th of October 2010. We are now in May of 2017. That's over 6 years, getting close to 7 years now, since Fallout New Vegas was developed and released. And that means, like with any other company in the world, there would have been a lot of staff turnover since then. 7 years we're talking about. So just given that sheer length of time, so many individual developers that worked on New Vegas would have already left Obsidian. So that in and of itself suggests that the Obsidian team of today is very likely to be vastly different to the one that worked on New Vegas all those years ago. And if you've ever worked in a corporate company, and especially the games industry, because there is a high rate of turnover in terms of employees in the games industry, you'll know how quickly a team can change over the years as people find new jobs, or as people are fired or made redundant, as new people are brought in, or as teams expand, or as employees are transferred within different areas of the company. Teams and companies can change drastically from year to year, just because of the fact that employees leave the company frequently. And when we're talking about almost 7 years, there is a very high likelihood that that happened in spades with Obsidian. And I have more data to back this up, but this is just, the first broad point that I wanted to mention. Second of all, in the description below, you'll find an article from gamesindustry.biz back in April 27th of 2011. And the article talks about how Obsidian Entertainment went through a large layoff period where they actually laid off a bunch of their staff. Mind you, that worked on Fallout New Vegas. The example they give is Eichel Hopper. I think his name is actually Eichel Hooper, not Hopper, but that could be a mistake of some sort. But he worked on Fallout New Vegas, right, and previous Obsidian games for 11 years, and he was let go, alongside many other Obsidian developers that posted on social media at the time. So that's just another thing that suggests that a lot of the team that worked on New Vegas since the 7 years that have passed have moved on from Obsidian, so they're no longer at that team anymore. And then last year there was this interview conducted by Sugarbombed with Chris Avellone, and he said the following thing in relation to a question about Obsidian working on a new Fallout game. He said that, so you know, the person who had the idea for New Orleans, in terms of Fallout mind you, isn't there any longer. He left many years ago, not long after the mass layoffs. So Chris Avellone also mentions these mass layoffs. And the last person to publicly advocate the desire to do a Fallout game has also departed the studio. So Chris not only again reinforces the fact that there were mass layoffs, but also that the developers that advocated and that wanted to work on another Fallout game also left Obsidian as well. So when I looked at all of these pieces of news, I thought, well look, it's been 7 years, Chris Avellone made his comments, there were mass layoffs, etc. I looked at this and said, well, Obsidian has changed a lot over the years because so many employees have left. but I wanted to go a little bit deeper. I didn't just want to rely on those pieces of information and say the team has changed a lot, therefore they might not develop the exact kind of Fallout game as New Vegas fans are expecting. So I did a bit of research here, I did a bit of number crunching, and what I did was look firstly at LinkedIn, and I searched for every single person that currently has a job at Obsidian Entertainment, and I put their names into an Excel spreadsheet. Overall, the number of employees that I could find on LinkedIn that currently work at Obsidian Entertainment is about 172 employees. Now, mind you, this isn't a perfect science, right? I mean, not every developer or employee at Obsidian has a LinkedIn account. There are also a lot of accounts as well that didn't have any names, it just said LinkedIn member. So I'm not at all suggesting that this represents the full entire spectrum of Obsidian's current team. Not at all. In fact, let me mention something. One of the biggest leaders of the Obsidian team right now is Josh Sawyer. I'm sure many of you heard of him. He's the game director at Obsidian and played one of the biggest roles in creating New Vegas. He wasn't on LinkedIn at all, but I knew he still worked at Obsidian because I follow him on Twitter. So that's just one example of how this is not a perfect science. You can't just look at all the employees that are listed on LinkedIn and say, this represents the entirety of Obsidian's current employee base. However, it's the best thing that we have possible. Obsidian, as far as I understand, don't have a public list of every single employee that currently works with them. But regardless, I've drawn that list and it's the best thing that we possibly have at this stage. And then what I did, I looked at the credits, the ending credits for Fallout New Vegas. Not the Game of the Year edition, not the one with all the DLCs that list everyone that worked on the DLCs. All I did for simplicity, and because it was the main game, the most important aspect of New Vegas, I looked at the ending credits for Fallout New Vegas back in 2010 and wrote down in Excel alongside that other list every single Obsidian employee and developer that worked on New Vegas at the time. And I figured that there was no better source to gain that information from than from the ending credits themselves. They are pretty official and they should be accurate. But again, not a perfect science. I mean, some people might not be listed on that. Some people might not be credited in every single instance, but still, it's the best that we have. And from that list, there are about 88 employees that were listed at Obsidian Entertainment that worked on New Vegas. There are many more names listed, such as voice actors and admin staff and all of those kinds of things. And again, everyone that worked on DLC. But just in terms of the main base game, in those ending credits, there are about 88 people that worked on New Vegas in 2010. So I put those two lists side by side in Excel. I removed any duplicates. I tried to ensure that every single name was exactly the same in both of those lists. And then I ran a formula so as to count any duplicates from the list of New Vegas employees to the list of current Obsidian employees. And what I found is that out of the 88 people in those end credits that worked on New Vegas, only 24 people of that 88 size person team are left working at Obsidian Entertainment. Again, at least those that were listed on LinkedIn, and I also added Josh Sawyer's name to that list too. So very roughly, we can look at these numbers and say there are only 24 people that worked on New Vegas that are still at Obsidian. That's about being generous with estimations. I'll round up here. That's about roughly 27 to 30% of the New Vegas team that have remained at Obsidian, which means that over 70% of the team have left since then. And also as well, Obsidian has now over 170 employees that work at the company. And therefore, those remaining 24 staff roughly are kind of diluted because their team has effectively doubled since they worked on New Vegas, even though there were some layoffs throughout that period. You have roughly 24 people that worked on New Vegas out of the 170 plus employees. And that's why the title of this video is along the lines of Obsidian as a company, as a development company, has changed a lot since New Vegas. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I'm not saying that they changed, therefore any Fallout game that they work on in the future is going to be a bad game. That's going to be the latter half of the video that I address, so please wait and bear with me. But all I'm saying is that the team has changed drastically since New Vegas. If you consider 24 out of over 170 employees, that's about 14% of Obsidian's current employees that worked on New Vegas, and the rest of them did not. Now, what does this mean? What am I trying to imply from this? Not much, really. I'm not trying to say anything bad. All I'm trying to do is put that information out there, and hopefully people that are kind of wedded to this idea that if Obsidian would work on another Fallout, it'd be almost the exact same as New Vegas, but improved in every way because it's the same team. but it's not the same team. It's so very, very different. And because of that, because there are different developers that have different development ideas, that want to create their own kinds of games, or at least put their own ideas into the games that they're working, there is a chance that this kind of ideal next Fallout game that people are thinking of when they say, I want Obsidian to work on the next Fallout game, might be very different in reality. There might be the chance, because of all these changes, that fans are putting up their expectations to this certain level or this certain area, that might be disappointed at what they actually might get because the team is so different. And I'm not saying different in a bad way, I'm just saying different. Because development teams, when they change, the past knowledge of working on previous games, like Fallout New Vegas, is kind of lost. What those New Vegas employees and developers learned by creating Fallout New Vegas, and all their ideas that they put into that game, have left. An important person being Chris Avallone, one of the lead writers and the chief creative officer of Obsidian at the time. He's no longer working at Obsidian, so if Obsidian were to work on another Fallout game, his ideas and his writing wouldn't be put into the game like it was with the past New Vegas game, and nor would the ideals and the skills and the knowledge of every other employee that has left Obsidian since 2010. Because they're gone now, they're no longer at that development studio. So I'm just putting that fact out there to see whether that might change people's minds in terms of the kind of Fallout game that today's Obsidian would create if they were given the chance. But now let me end this video on the following. Just because Obsidian has changed a lot since 2010, since New Vegas was finished, that does not mean that they are a bad developer. I'm not saying that they're a bad or they're a worse developer than the team that worked on New Vegas all those years ago. All I'm saying is that they're different, but they're still very clearly a fantastic developer that is creating just quality games. And I've since said in those previous videos of mine, I would love this Obsidian of today to work on another Fallout game. One, because we'd get another Fallout game before Fallout 5, which probably isn't coming for another 8 to 10 years or whatever it is. But secondly, we would have a pre-established studio that is making kick-ass, fantastic games work on another Fallout game, and I think that's absolutely massive. And let's just look at the kinds of games that this current Obsidian has worked on. Tyranny, which came out in November 10 of 2016, got an 80 on Metacritic. Pathfinder Adventures, which is an iOS game, but regardless, that came out in April of 2016, got an 85 on Metacritic. Pillars of Eternity, which came out in 2015, so a little bit time has passed since then, but still, less than 2 years ago, Pillars of Eternity got an 89 on Metacritic, with the DLCs getting 79 and 76 respectively. And then of course one of the massive games, but it's going back a little bit, it's about 3 years or so, released in March of 2014, South Park: The Stick of Truth. That game got an 85 on Metacritic. So clearly, today's current Obsidian is an amazing studio. They're very skilled, they're constantly producing amazing games. I have not seen a current game that they've released in the past couple of years that has gotten below 80 on Metacritic. The DLCs had, but in terms of main base games that they've released, all of those games are reviewed very, very well, and especially the user scores too. Like South Park: Stick of Truth got an 8.6 user score on Metacritic, and you know how hard it is to get great user scores on Metacritic. So clearly, today's Obsidian, while I've mentioned that they're very different to the team that worked on New Vegas, they're just different. That doesn't make them bad or worse. They're still an amazing studio that has created awesome games in the past couple of years. And I would love to see this team, this Obsidian team, work on the next Fallout game. But do I think that just because they're Obsidian, we're going to get the true spiritual successor to Fallout New Vegas? There's a chance that we might not. There's a chance, again, because of new developers that want to execute new ideas, that we'd get a great Fallout game, but something that's still slightly different to New Vegas. And it might be very different to this ideal New Vegas 2 that people are thinking of, the next Fallout game that this Obsidian would work on. It might be very different to that kind of ideal, but it would still be great, and I appreciate that. But I know this is a long video, but I'm going to get this out of the way. But we also need to mention as well that even though the studio is different, they would absolutely look at Fallout New Vegas and try and do what that game did very well. I mean, if Obsidian were to work on another Fallout game, there is no doubt in my mind that they would look back on that past Fallout New Vegas, because Obsidian still created that. Different team, but it is still Obsidian. They would look back on that past New Vegas and say, we need to stay true to that game because fans loved it, and also it was our past Obsidian team. They're our counterparts. Let's stay true to that as much as possible. And of course, you still have mainstays players and big names that still work at Obsidian today, some of which are founders at Obsidian. So Fergus Urquhart, Joshua Sawyer, Darren Monahan, Chris Jones, some of the founders and well-known developers at Obsidian today still worked on New Vegas all those years ago. So it's very possible that they could direct the team in such a way to create another Fallout game that would satisfy the expectations of New Vegas fans currently that are wanting Obsidian of today to work on another Fallout game. So anyways, Wastelanders, that's all from me. This is going to be a long video. I'm recording 36 minutes. So please let me know in the comments below your opinions, and until next time, this has been the Lone Vault Wanderer. Please take care of yourself, and would you kindly keep fighting the good fight.